What's going on, fight fans? DJC Combat here, and I decided to go live on YouTube for the first time in a while. Just going to be covering a few topics. Going to be on here for maybe like an hour or so. I don't really have like a full 2 hours because I got like plans later on today. But yeah, we got the trilogy between Max Holloway and Dustin the Diamond Poirier. The final dance. I did a prediction video individually for the main event. You can go check that out. Kind of doing poor for views, but yeah, I just went over that fight. Talked about that one individually. Hold on a second. Let me put it up on the screen right now before I go on to the rest of the card. 1 second. Yeah, so it's got like 51 views. I put Grasso in the thumbnail because that's kind of part of my gimmick now. You know, I mean, Grasso is literally my profile picture. Rose is like the background screen. She was like my OG fave, but had to put Grasso here in the center of the thumbnail. I had to like crop her head over a prophet that's like prompting her hands over like a crystal ball. I don't know if maybe that thumbnail is like turning people off. I even changed the title a little bit too. But yeah, if you haven't seen that video already, go check that out because I go more in depth and full length on my analysis as to who I'm picking to win this fight. I mean, of course, y'all know that I am actually going for Max Holloway to win. Spoiler alert. But if you want like my full in-depth analysis, you might as well like check out my video. But yeah, overall, these are like my main card predictions. I never really go over like the entire pay-per-view or entire cards of these events unless it's like really worth talking about, like UFC 300, for example. I went over every single fight. I'll be shocked if Sumiko makes it out of round one. Same, bro. Same. Yeah, Sumiko ain't surviving, bro. She's gonna get. I mean, I know nothing about the girl, honestly. Like, admittedly, so I know nothing. I know absolutely nothing about her. I mean, since we're talking about it, I might as well put it on the screen right here. Yeah, so Dakota Ditcheva is back after some time off. After this win, I hope she goes to the UFC, man. She has to. I don't want another Fedor situation, man, where you see one of the best fighters outside of the UFC competing anywhere but the UFC. Dakota Dangerous Ditcheva needs to be in the UFC, and she needs to be in the UFC around the time Valentina Shevchenko is still active, because who knows how much longer Val's going to be fighting. I can't call her an unk because she's a woman, so she's like an aunt, but that kind of doesn't have a good ring to it. So she's kind of a granny. You know, she's 37, going to be 38 next March. So Dakota's got to hurry the hell up, man. We need that super fight between Ditcheva and Shevchenko. Or if, you know, Valentina should lose to Weili or Natalia, who doesn't want to see Dakota fight Natalia Silva, a striker's delight, or Dakota Ditcheva versus Weili Zhang. That's another really good fight. Yo, it's good, Flowers. Oh, I didn't share the screen. My bad. Or did I? Add to stage. Oh, the fuck? How does this thing even work? Oh, I got to remove the other media. That's how it works. Okay. All right. I'm pretty sure Val said she's going to fight for as long as she can, so I'm confident Val isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah, she kind of strikes me as one of those fighters who will just stick around even when she's past her prime. She doesn't strike me as a Nunes type who will kind of get in and get out, you know, and keep her legacy intact. Although who knows what's going to happen with Nunes? She might lose to Kayla Harrison and go out on a loss. Well, good. She should definitely come to the UFC. So I have to remove my UFC 318 um screen so I could show the Dakota Ditcheva screen. I thought I was sharing that this whole time. I don't know. I think StreamYard changed the rules or something. Would you rather see Val fight Natalia or Weili next? I would rather see her fight Natalia Silva. I mean, Weili, that's a big fight. And if there's a good time for that fight to happen, it's now more than ever. And you know what they always say, strike the iron while it's hot. You don't want to lose a golden opportunity while it's here. But why not have Weili clean out one more contender in Verna Jandiroba and let's see if Valentina can beat Natalia Silva. People think she's a threat. And if she can go out there and put Natalia Silva away, then and of course if Weili beats Verna, then there we go. We have our super fight. And I think Valentina beating Natalia, cleaning out one less number one contender, and then Weili doing likewise. I think that makes their super fight even bigger. But right now they both have number one contenders waiting for them. So they might as well just get it over with. And I mean, I don't really care to see Weili versus Verna, but Natalia Val is very intriguing, you know, because you got two high-level strikers. Obviously, Valentina will be the most well-rounded and most experienced and smartest opponent that Natalia will have ever faced. Best striker Natalia will ever faced. But on the other hand, Natalia will be the best striker that Valentina will have ever faced with the most versatile striking style. Grasso had the boxing. She didn't have the kicks. And she didn't have the takedown the fence. Natalia has the takedown the fence. She's got more footwork than Alexa. She's faster than her. And statistically speaking, I don't know if the stats will live up in the fight, but she's hard to take down. So if it's like purely striking, this could be a legit challenge for the Bullet. Okay. I'm glad her contract ends by the end of this year. And that's what I did predict in my predictions for 2025 video. Even though it did absolutely horrible, I got pretty much all of my predictions wrong. I did say that Patricio was going to sign with the UFC, was right. He's going to lose this weekend. We'll talk about that real soon. And then I predicted the end of 2025. Dakota's not going to be in the UFC, but she's going to be announced to debut for early 2026. And I mean, who would Dakota Ditcheva fight if she were to join the UFC? I'm going to try to pull up these like rankings. I want to see like who they would give Dakota Ditcheva in her UFC debut. One sec. Okay. Let me just go over these rankings. Yeah, so if Dakota comes to the UFC early next year, I just gotta look at the landscape of the division. So you got Natalia Silva versus Valentina Shevchenko, which will probably happen soon. And then in that case, Manon Firo, I don't know who. I mean, they might do Jasmine Jasdavizius versus, or no, I could see them doing Jasmine versus Aaron if they're not going to reschedule the Barber fight. So maybe they'd do Barber Manon. Grasso versus Rose, I think that's on lock. Honestly, Tracy Cortez never fights twice a year. Oh, my bad. Hold on. I don't know how Rose just popped up and took over the screen. Tracy never fights twice a year. So you know what I think they might do? Tracy Cortez versus Dakota Ditcheva. And the Dakota Ditcheva, great takedown the fence. She'll beat the hell out of Tracy Cortez. And then she'll be like, she won't even be ranked number 8. They'll move her straight up to the top 5. And then they might, I don't know, if Rose beats Grasso, she's going to be like trying to get a title shot and avoiding Dakota Ditcheva, which she should if she knows what's good for her. They might just do Dakota Aaron maybe, or the winner of Barber Manon if that hypothetical fight happens. or maybe even the loser of Natalia Val. But then if Zhang Wei Li, leapfrogs Natalia Silva, they're going to do Natalia Manin. I still think Grasso Rose happens. I think they do Jazz Davisius versus Blanchfield in Vancouver, and Barber will probably fight Tracy Cortez. And you know what? Dakota could also fight Macy Barber. That's another good fight they can make. Barber's not been a good company woman. She's not fought for the last year. She literally blue balls the fans right at the walkout, walked back into the locker room because she had an anxiety attack and capped about a seizure, and then, said to Ariel, I don't know what happened. You know what happened. You had an anxiety attack and the seizure was just a cover up to save you the embarrassment of pulling out from an anxiety attack. But I think Dakota Ditcheva will be the number one contender probably by like spring, middle of like next year. I mean, I don't know if they'll give her a title shot off one win in the UFC, but if they're that desperate to get her to fight Val, you never know. End of the year, she might get the UFC title. I don't think Valentina is going to be champ by the end of 2026. I'm sorry, Shevchenko fanboys. Her time will expire soon. I know she beat Grasso. I know she beat Manon, but Manon was old. Grasso was just meant to be the temporary disruptor of Valentina's legacy. She was never destined to inherit the throne. Unfortunately, even as a Grasso fan, that's not what the MMA gods were looking for. If they're looking for anyone to permanently get rid of Shevchenko, it's going to be someone like Natalia, maybe Wei Li, or Dakota Ditcheva. It's going to be one of the three candidates. Let me read these comments. Let's see. I think Grasso didn't have the speed and IQ. Yeah, where is Casey O'Neill even ranked? Ranked number 12. But they're not going to give her someone outside the top 10. They're going to give her someone within the top 10, top 7 range because they're going to try to fast track Dakota. And did you guys hear that the UFC tried to they were in a rush to trade Merab for Dakota in 2024. Could you imagine if they actually did that? We would lose out on one of the best pound-for-pound fighters ever, but we would have Dakota in the UFC way sooner, and I reckon Tyler Santos would already be the PFL champion. So MMA would be different. I think Sean would have like 2 more title defenses and then lose the belt to Umar Nurmagomedov, and Umar would be champion. And Merab would be like crushing cans in the PFL. Poirier Diaz would have been a better main event. Yeah, but Nate Diaz is no longer with the UFC, so I don't either. It'll be and new Natalia and Dakota are dangerous. Yeah, she would totally embarrass Tracy. But let's talk UFC 318 for a little bit. So we got Holloway versus Poirier, 3, Costa versus Kopylov, and Holland versus Rodriguez, and Ige versus Pitbull, and Johnson versus Zellhuber. So, I mean, this pay-per-view as a whole, like, it's okay. It's not the greatest pay-per-view, hence why I, didn't sit down and do a full card prediction. That's one of the only reasons why I did, an individual prediction video for the main event of Holloway versus Poirier 3. But as y'all know, I've made up my mind after doing some thinking that Max Holloway is going to win. I'm not confident, though. I'm anything but confident in Max Holloway because I know Dustin Poirier has already beaten him twice. And even with 6 years going by, and even with Poirier aging and Holloway improving, I still think Poirier is still a really hard matchup for Holloway because I think he's the better boxer of the two with more power, more dangerous inside the pocket, a better brawler. He's got the grit to handle Holloway's pressure. He can almost keep up with the volume and cardio, and he's got the grappling advantage over Holloway, a way better ground game. I really thought of picking Dustin Poirier to win, but I'm going with Max because I see a path to victory for him. Okay, from what I studied in that second fight, I saw moments of success that I think Holloway could build off of into the third fight. But I said the same thing about the trilogy with Volk, and Volk beat the hell out of Max Holloway. I said, oh, Holloway did this right in the second fight, so therefore he can do this even better in the third fight. But here's the major difference. Volkanovski was not on the brink of retirement. Volkanovski was headed on his fourth defense, chasing GOAT status in the featherweight division. So he was in a point in his career where he was still improving, right? Still hungry. Whereas Dustin isn't hungry anymore, and he's not going to improve anymore. And he's 36 years old. He is slowing down. I don't think it'll be an easy fight, but what I saw in that last fight is Holloway outstriking Dustin when he wasn't getting rocked, when he wasn't getting hurt, in like throughout the fight, when he wasn't taking damage or getting rattled, when he wasn't getting his brain scrambled around. He was piecing up Dustin Poirier and controlling the exchanges, landing the flurries, landing the better combinations on Dustin. He was winning the second round handily until he got caught clean with that right check hook, which is one of Dustin's most dangerous weapons at the end of round 2. And then round 3, he was like recovering. He was still hurt, but then he started to come back on late round 3. And then round 4, that was Holloway's best round where he won. And then the only reason why he lost the 5th round is because he kind of slowed down a bit. And I think he took a bad cut, like in between his eyes from a knee, and that kind of halted any momentum. And I mean, that's another thing about Dustin's style that does make him difficult for Max, is it's really hard for Holloway to build momentum on a guy like Poirier, because Poirier, he can throw down, he can scrap with Holloway, and he'll land with bigger, better shots, and he is a precise counterpuncher, or he can threaten takedowns, right? But Holloway doesn't just rely on snowballing you anymore with volume. He's gotten better with his footwork. He's more elusive. He controls distance better now. His defense has gotten better. His counter striking has gotten better. He's increased his power. He's increased his speed. And if you combine all these improvements that Holloway has added to his arsenal, I think he can beat, I think this current version of Holloway that we saw at UFC 300, if that Holloway shows up this weekend and we see any version of Dustin we saw against BSD, who didn't look that good, who looked a little bit rusty against Islam, even though he had a good 4th round. If we see the version of Dustin from his last 2 and the version of Max from his last 2, I think Holloway can get it done. As long as he doesn't get clipped, as long as he doesn't get rocked early again, I think he can land more volume, win more exchanges, be just a little bit faster, and beat Poirier to the punch. And I'm going to say Holloway, I want to pick him by a finish. Like, I could see a finish, but for some reason, I feel like if anyone's going to get a finish, it's going to be Poirier. So Holloway will probably win by decision, I'm going to say. But I'm not overly confident. You know, this is Dustin's last fight. He never loses 2 fights in a row. I know he's going to be hungry to want to win in front of his hometown and, you know, walk away as the BMF champ and, you know, of course not go out in a loss. But the thing is, we see this often in the sport. Unless you're John Jones or Amanda Nunes or Khabib or GSP, not all legends go out on top. A lot of legends go out on a loss. And this might be a tragic storybook ending for Dustin Poirier. And also, not to mention, man, Holloway is going to be even better at lightweight than he was, 6 years ago. Like 6 years ago, Max Holloway was muffin top Max. He was a fat featherweight fighting at lightweight, out of shape. That's why he couldn't take the shots as well either. You know, now that he's going to be in shape, I think that will increase his ability to take the shots at Dustin. His brain's going to be hydrated. He's not going to be cutting weight, but he's going to be filled up and strong. So he's not going to be depleted like the Ilya fight, but he's not going to be out of shape like the second Dustin fight. It's going to be a full camp, unlike the first 2 fights. And I think he'll be more ready to brace for the impact and handle the power of Poirier. I don't think he'll get caught by it as much this time, but he'll be more prepared to take the shots, if that makes sense. And the more ready you are, the less devastating it is. I think Holloway will be faster with his counters, move in and out, land some good body kicks as well on Dustin Poirier. Dustin will still have a few good moments. Like I said, it will not be an easy fight. Let me see. If Holloway, who fought Gaethje, shows up, Dustin could be in trouble. I agree. If Holloway can beat Dustin, he could be next in line for Topuria. It's possible because Max Holloway, he's talking a lot of crap about Ilya, saying that his win streak is overrated. And right now, the top of the lightweight division is in a bit of a state of confusion. I don't think Dana knows what he wants to do. I don't think he knows who he wants to give the next shot, except for Arman. He knows he's not going to give it to Sarukian, but he's caught between either giving it to Gaethje, who's threatening to retire and is entitled, or Paddy Pimblett. But if Max Holloway can make a statement, Holloway could be next. And what sucks is if Dustin wasn't going to retire, and let's say he beats Holloway, I think he might get the next shot. You know, he'd come in as the BMF champ, another legend. A lot of fans would want to see Topuria and Poirier. Don't be surprised if Holloway cracks Dustin on the feet, because Holloway seems to have more sting on his punches at lightweight. I totally agree. He does. Now, I didn't get into the co-main event of this card. So we got Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. Yeah, it's no secret. I mean, you can see I got the X on Costa's face. I just don't believe in Costa anymore. And I quite frankly never did believe in Costa. Like, I've been saying Paulo is overrated since 2018. Like, since the Uriah Hall fight, I'm like, this guy's not that good. He punched Hall in the balls like a bunch of times, which definitely helped him win. He missed a bunch of body shots that went below the belt, which deteriorated Hall. And I mean, Hall does fold under pressure, but Hall was landing good shots. Hall was touching him up with that jab. Hall rocked him with a check hook to the temple. And then, of course, he finished Hall in round 2. But when I saw that performance, I'm like, this guy's not the next big thing in the middleweight division. I picked Romero to beat him. I thought Romero would destroy him, and he didn't. It was a close fight. Fair play. I thought Costa won the first 2 rounds. I'm not in the Yoel was robbed train like others. I thought Yoel came on a little too strong, a little too late, but Costa still got whooped in the Yoel fight. He won, but he got beat up in the process. And seeing that fight, I'm like, okay, he beat Yoel. And at that point, I tried to be a Costa believer. I tried to see what others were seeing in Costa, but then we saw Israel Adesanya make easy work of him. And I predicted Izzy would win by round 4 TKO. Izzy finished him faster than I anticipated. And then his next fight against Vettori, he gets outstruck by Marvin Vettori, who's also on this card. Marvin Vettori is trash, okay? He sucks. Imagine getting outboxed by freaking Marvin Vettori. You're Paulo Costa, the big scary striker. What are you doing getting outstruck by Vettori? And then having a close fight, going life and death with the ghost of Luke Rockhold. And he won. You shouldn't be going to war with Luke. Michael Bisping knocked him out in the first freaking round. Jan Blachowicz knocked him out in the second round. Yoel knocked him out in the third round. Anyone who is a dangerous striker has put Luke Rockhold away except for Lyoto Machida. Oh, Vitor Belfort also put him away on the sauce. And we know Costa's probably juicing. Still couldn't put Luke away. And then, like I predicted, he gets whooped by Robert Whittaker. I mean, he tried to duck him the first time it was booked. But then when they actually rescheduled it and Costa actually freaking showed up, Costa got his ass beat. Nothing to show for, but his hands behind his back, his tongue out, and taunting Whittaker. His only moment was that spin back kick where Rob got saved by the bell. Other than that, he stood at range getting jabbed to death. And for some reason, fans glaze him over that performance when he did nothing. And then he shits the bed against Strickland. Yeah, he's not beating Roman Kopylov. Roman Kopylov is a way better striker than Paulo Costa. Costa's not going to outpoint him. And Costa's not going to knock him out either. His power is absolutely overrated. And his striking success, it stems from being able to back his opponents up against the cage where he can unload his volume. But if his opponents don't back up, like Izzy didn't, like Whittaker didn't, like Sean Strickland didn't, like Vettori didn't. Vettori was pressuring him. He has nothing. People say that, oh, Paulo's broken because Izzy knocked him out and humped him. That's partially why Paulo Costa's mindset in the fight game has been pretty trash, like lack of commitment to showing up to fights and lack of commitment to making weight and being active. But he was just never that guy. He was yet to be exposed, and Israel exposed him. Whitaker just further reaffirmed what I thought about him. Okay, or Marvin did. I forgot Marvin beat him as well. And then Sean Strickland, again, validated everything I've been saying about Costa. I don't even think Sean is that good. So I think Costa, he's going to show up to get pieced up. And I'm going to say Roman Kopylov wins by a decision just because Paulo Costa is durable. Like, and I don't think Kopylov, even though he's got a lot of finishes, I don't think he's got like the precision of a prime Israel Adesanya to put him away. So I think Costa will survive, but he'll just get picked apart. He'll just be a human punching bag for 3 rounds. And I'll say Kopylov, 30-27. And then Kevin Holland, Daniel Rodriguez. This has been a kind of like a tough one for me to decide. I remember doing a prediction video for this fight on my original channel, and I think I picked Kevin. And reasons as to why I went with Holland is because D-Rod doesn't have a grappling threat, and that's primarily how you're going to beat Kevin, is by out-grappling him. He's very difficult to beat in purely just striking, unless you're like a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson or a Michael Venom Page. Those are the only 2 times that Holland's been outclassed on the feet. Not even Jack Della Maddalena, who did beat him. It was a close fight. He couldn't school Kevin Holland on the feet with that boxing style. Holland was able to make it close with the current champion. I don't think Daniel Rodriguez is that good. I mean, I know he knocked out Ponzinibbio, but Ponzinibbio's ass at this point in his career. D-Rod got freaking subbed by Neil Magny. I mean, yo, you're having trouble with Magny. Kevin Holland is like another 6'3" black man with a long reach, except Holland is like Neil Magny if Magny had power, right? If Magny was a little tougher. I mean, Magny's tough actually, but Magny don't have that. He don't have like dynamite in his hands. I think Kevin can crack D-Rod, and I think he can probably catch him in a sub as D-Rod shoots for a desperation takedown. I'm going to say Kevin Holland by Darce choke like he did to Vicente Luque. Right now, Holland, he's back on a run. He was on a bit of a downslide because he fought MVP, horrible matchup, and then for some reason, he went back to middleweight. That's why he went on an L streak, because he fought Roman Dolidze, who's a pretty solid contender, and then, you know, had a tough outing against RDR. Never should have been in there with him. But once he went back to his true weight class and he stopped fighting these like elite level strikers and stopped fighting at middleweight, he's doing good again. So I think Kevin can win this. But I have a bad feeling that if it goes to a decision, D-Rod will probably win like a close fight. But I think Holland can finish the job because D-Rod's been finished before. He's been knocked out by Ian Gary, who's not really a finisher like that, at least not anymore, and was getting finished by Magny. So I think Holland can definitely get him out of there. And then Ige, Pitbull. Man, I really want Patricio Pitbull to win this fight. I really do. I like Pitbull, man. I've been watching him in his Bellator days from like the early 2020s, late 2010s, early 2020s. I've been watching his career since 2019 when he knocked out Michael Chandler, became double champ. I've been scouting this guy out, right? And when Patricio Pitbull, when Volkanovski became champion and Patricio Pitbull was talking about wanting to do like a cross promotion with Volk, I was all on board for seeing that fight. That was a fight I've wanted to see for years. Okay, I've been high on Pitbull since the beginning. But he came to the UFC a little too late. A little too late, a little too past his prime, 38 years old. They gave him Yair Rodriguez in his UFC debut, who I thought he should have beat. Like stylistically, he should have beat Yair because Yair doesn't deal well with pressure fighters. Pitbull does have pressure. Pitbull's better than him inside the pocket. And he struggles against guys who can mix the martial arts against him. Look at what Frankie did to him, a short, stocky featherweight at the time, was able to take him down, maul him. Volkanovski, same thing. Brian Ortega, after almost getting knocked the fuck out, took down Yair and subbed him. And I believed in Pitbull's style, that he could come over to the UFC. And I thought Yair was tailor-made for him to beat. But I do think a bit of bias played into that prediction. And Yair did kind of improve his takedown defense as well. He did kind of improve with a year off. It was a mixture of both things. Yair got better, but also Patricio Pitbull got worse. And I didn't take into account that Pitbull's UFC career just hasn't been looking the prettiest, you know. It hasn't been looking the greatest pre-UFC, like years closer to coming to the UFC. Patricio just hasn't been looking that good. Let me just check out his record. I'm not going to like share it on the screen because I know this guy didn't have a good track record. Yeah, he was like 1-2 in his last 3 going into the UFC. And his one win to get him in the UFC was against Jeremy Kennedy, who's a bum, a nobody. Lost to Chihiro Suzuki. Who the fuck is that? And he got KO'd. Lost to Sergio Pettis, who's a really good striker, a bantamweight. But Sergio Pettis has a similar style to a Yair. And then AJ McKee, similar stature to Yair. Tall, lanky. So I should have seen it coming. Unfortunately, now I do see the vision. And I do see that Patricio is going to lose yet again in the UFC. Dan Ige may not be a tall, rangy, or flashy striker like Yair Rodriguez. But Dan Ige, I think he's a bad matchup for this version of Pitbull. I don't think Pitbull can knock out Ige. Ige's never been knocked out. And I know Pitbull has power, but Ige has a granite chin. Okay, granite chin. Ige has better wrestling than him. I don't see Pitbull out wrestling Ige. And when it comes down to like toughness, grit, cardio, volume, I can't see Ige getting outworked by Pitbull. I think Ige, underrated boxing. He's got some sleeper power of his own. He knocked out Damon Jackson, Gavin Tucker, Andre Feely. He's got a power threat. He's more durable, powerful enough to knock out Pitbull, who got knocked out not too long ago. And he can out wrestle him, and he can just outgrind him. So I'm going to say that Dan Ige wins this fight by a decision. Ige is a really good gatekeeper for the featherweight division, okay? And he's not an easy fight for anybody, okay? He's sort of like the Neil Magny of featherweight. He's like that true test to see if you're worthy of being in the top 10 of the featherweight division. And he gave Lerone Murphy a close fight. Let that sink in. He made Josh Emmett struggle. Okay, he beat Barboza, which was a pretty good win at the time. A lot of people thought it was a robbery, but it was a good win. Okay. And then what else? Like, yeah, Ige just doesn't typically get smoked in fights. He took it to Diego Lopez. It was short notice, but still, man, even on short notice, like the short notice definitely affected Diego because he wasn't preparing for Ige, but Diego couldn't finish him, whether it be by knockout or sub. He gassed out trying, and this guy had, who could be the current champ, but he's not because he lost to Volk. He had him on the ropes in the last round and almost won. So, yeah, I just don't think right now Patricio is good enough to hang with the big leagues. If he came to the UFC like a few years earlier, like if he came, like when he beat Michael Chandler in 2019, if he was in the UFC during that era where you had Ortega squatting on his rankings and TKZ was like a top 2 contender, Frankie was still a top contender, Moicano was a top contender, Cub Swanson was a top contender. Back in that era of featherweight, when you had Zabit, Jose Aldo was still there, pre-Volkanovski becoming champions, and then when he became the champion, I think Pitbull would do well. I don't think he'd be champion. I don't think he would have beat Volk then, or Max Holloway, or Zabit, but Zabit retired soon after. But there were some guys he could have hung with back then. He probably could have beat Ortega back in the day. He probably beats Yair back in the day. I don't know about TKZ. He probably beats an aging Frankie Edgar, you know? He might be able to beat Calvin Kattar. I would pick him to beat Jeremy Stevens back when Stevens was a contender at featherweight, but I just think it's too late for him. Like, who does he beat in the UFC? You know, I can't see him. Hold on. I had the rankings like not too long ago. Okay, yeah. I can't see him. I can't see him beating Evloev, Diego. He already lost to Yair. Allen beats him. Brian beats him. Murphy beats him. Sterling beats him. Emmett beats him. Yusuf Zalal beats him. Gene Silva beats him. And I think Ige is going to beat him. I don't know if he beats Steve Garcia. Maybe he could beat David Onama, Giga Chikadze, Bryce Mitchell in this current version of Calvin Kattar, which is probably the fight they should have made. But yeah, I don't know. Sadly, I think Pitbull's legacy when it comes to the UFC is going to be the failed detour where he goes 0-2, and then he'll probably go back to the B leagues or retire. So I'm going to say Ige wins a decision in this one. He just outworks Pitbull. Let's see. That was 2017, 2018 UFC featherweight division. Yeah, and back then, that's when I think Patricio Pitbull could have done well in the UFC. The Eraser gets smashed by Kopylov. He will. Yair destroyed Pitbull. Unfortunately, he did. That was sad to watch, man, because I remember I was hyped when Patricio Pitbull signed with the UFC and was booked to fight Yair and on the same night as Volk, because that was a fight I've been wanting to see since 2020. Two short, stocky, powerful featherweights going at it. I'm like, this will be a great fight. Two 5'6" demons, world champions in different organizations. Volk, where the best guys go. Pitbull, where maybe not the not so best guys go, but I wanted to find out at the time who could be the best featherweight in the world between Pitbull and Volkanovski. And I was hoping that Pitbull was going to beat Yair and then earn a shot at Volk. But unfortunately, what that fight showed me is he's not on Volkanovski's level, and Volk would kick his ass. I mean, he would have beat him up back then as well, as I learned, but yeah. And then we got MJ versus Daniel Zellhuber. I think Daniel Zellhuber is going to win this fight. Zellhuber has the height and reach advantage, and I think he's a better striker. He's never been knocked out before, and I don't see MJ knocking him out. I know he knocked out Ottoman Azaitar, but ever since, I don't know what the hell happened to Azaitar. Like, ever since Ottoman got in that situation, he got in that legal trouble at UFC 257, ever since that, something happened to him. Something happened to Azaitar. Because then when he finally came back, he loses to Matt Frevola, who I picked him to beat when they were going to fight in 2021. He loses to some like 22-year-old kid. Then he loses to Michael Johnson. And I don't think he should have lost that fight because I don't know. I think Johnson's washed. He's got 20-plus losses. He's lost the sting on his punches ever since he went to featherweight and then moved back up to lightweight. He hasn't been as powerful. So, yeah, I don't know. If he doesn't KO Zellhuber, I don't think he beats him on points. So I think Zellhuber just uses his height, his length, and pieces him up. Controls the range, controls the pace. And, yeah, the Unk takes another loss. But, hey, Michael Johnson, he's not doing too horrible for himself lately. I think he's like 3-1 in his last 4 fights. I think he's on a 2-fight win streak because Zellhuber's coming off a loss, but it was like a close fight to Esteban Ribovics. And I think he's going to learn from that loss. And I think he's just going to come back better. I wish Pitbull came to the UFC around 2019. Same, bro. Same. And I really hope he does beat Dan Ige. Like, I'm rooting for him to win. It's just Dan Ige, he's a better matchup than Yair, but he's still a hard fight. Because like I said, Ige is a tough fight for anyone, tough style for anyone to deal with. And if anyone's going to smoke Dan Ige, it's not going to be this current version of Pitbull, who is hesitant against Yair, who didn't put on enough pressure, who didn't wrestle enough. I mean, he tried to grapple in the moments, but not enough. Yeah, and Johnson's like talking about wanting to get a title shot. Like that's not going to happen. Even if he beats Daniel Zellhuber, then Daniel Zellhuber just was never that guy and won't be anything if he fucking loses to washed up Michael Johnson. That's just the sad reality. I like MJ. I've been following MJ's career for a long time, since like 2016. Like I got back in the sport. I took a break for a little bit, but around UFC 200, I got back in the sport and I made some new discoveries. I already knew about Conor McGregor since like 2014, but I discovered Max Holloway, who my mouse is pointing to, Dustin Poirier, which is funny. That's why this card almost feels like a full circle moment for me, right? Been following these guys for 9 years. And then Michael Johnson, I heard of him when he fought Khabib. I didn't really know about his pre-Khabib UFC run. I had to like go back in time and do some late research. And I found out at the time he was the last man to beat El Kakui. He has a win over Barboza and Poirier, right? And MJ is kind of an interesting character. Like, he's the type of guy who will beat Dustin Poirier and lose to a bum off the street. Like, it's crazy how he lost to Clay Guida. Couldn't beat Clay, but beat Dustin Poirier. Yeah, it is laughable that he does think that he's going to get a title shot. Like, we know that's not going to happen. Let me just look through more of these comments. Dakota, easy win over Valentina. I hope we find out. I hope we find out. I want to see that fight. I want to see Dakota Ditcheva fight Valentina Shevchenko. That would be an amazing fight. And it needs to be done. It needs to happen. Dakota Ditcheva and Shevchenko. Hold on. Like, if Dakota spends any more than like the next 6 months in the PFL, it would just be a waste of time. You know, she's got so much talent. She's physically gifted. Why waste it in the PFL? Oh, he was? Or is he? Sorry, I missed your comments as I was like going over like the card and stuff. Is Dan Hooker legit the backup for the card? I mean, if someone pulls out, like if Max pulls out, they'll probably give Dustin a rematch with Michael Johnson. And then Dustin will just KO Michael Johnson for his last win. Okay, you didn't answer my question. Because I asked you if Dan Hooker is he the backup, or are you just saying in past tense? Okay, forget it. What do you guys think of this White House card that Donald Trump is trying to put on? And do you guys think it will happen? Because that seems to be the only thing that will bring back Conor McGregor and John Jones. He was, but he injured himself, of course. Dan Hooker is always getting injured, man. It's crazy. I remember this guy used to be active. He used to be active. Now this guy, like, his whole career pattern, and I'll show you right now. This is literally his whole freaking career. This is his whole freaking career. 1 second. Let me go Dan Hooker, Sherdog, or no, Tapology. Because Tapology will show the canceled bouts. Look at this shit. Look at this. Ever since 2022, his career has been show up once, then pull out, show up, pull out again, show up, pull out again. Like, this guy only fights once a year. So he'll show up to his next fight, But then he'll have another fight booked after that, and then he's going to pull out. Watch. He was supposed to fight King Green. He would have put him away if that fight happened. And he ruined what would have been one of the best fights of the decade, a fight with Justin Gaethje. He just had to freaking break his hand. He just had to get injured. And now the fight could happen. They could reschedule it, but Gaethje doesn't care to reschedule the fight. He's aiming towards getting knocked out by Ilia Topuria instead. Meaning we'll probably get Hooker losing to Arman Tsarukyan or maybe Paddy Pimblett, because Pimblett would probably beat Hooker. Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if the White House card doesn't end up happening. But the fact that you got it drawing out big names like John Jones or Conor, that's got to be incentive for the UFC to really want to like get to work on that card next year. Oh, I know. Tell me about it. But Conor said, I'm in the testing pool, ready to make my comeback. I'm going to fight on that big White House card, and then I'm going to have another fight, and then we can talk. Okay, I hope so, man. I've been wanting to see Conor back for a while. We've not seen this guy in 5 years, which is crazy. When he got injured against Poirier, I thought he'd be back as soon as like maybe early 2023. And then when he didn't come back in 2023, it aligned perfectly. 2024, International Fight Week against Chandler. And he just had to pull out of that fight. And it ruined Chandler's career because Chandler, it forced him to get active, lose to Oliveira, get mauled by Pimblett. But you know what? Maybe now Chandler might be a more winnable fight for Conor. He's been softened up. He's washed. It might make Conor a little more confident. It might make the UFC more confident to reschedule it. Because, hey, Conor Cerrone didn't happen until Donald Cerrone was like at the end of the road on a 2-fight L streak to Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje. So that might now be the perfect time to make Chandler McGregor. And Conor might have a good chance at winning. But if Conor is going to fight on the White House and John Jones is going to be on that card, I wonder who's going to be the main event. If they're going to make Conor the main event, or for the first time ever, he'll be the co-main. Because I know John Jones is going to fight for a title. He'll fight Tom Aspinall, the winner of Aspinall Gane, which I hope to God it's going to be Tom. Like if fucking Surreal somehow wins, Gane Jones can be a co-main event for all I care. But if Tom wins, that's a main event fight. Tom versus Jones, the British versus the USA in the White House on Independence Day. How crazy would that be? Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Conor McGregor elephant in the room. And I don't just mean the White House. But what do you guys think of Conor's lifting weights situation where he flashed his meat to Azealia Banks? Speaking of Conor, I'd never seen so many guys stoked to see another man's pickle SMH making fun of it and everything. I know, man. Crazy. And Conor has no shame, and D. Devlin doesn't care. Like, D, no self-respect. She doesn't give a shit if Conor McGregor cheats on her. She's like, it's okay. You can cheat on me all you want. But I mean, hey, when you're married to a man with that much money, I mean, I guess I can see why. Like, it wouldn't be that easy for D to leave Conor. It would not be easy for her to get out of that relationship. Same way how it's not easy for Jesse Moses to get out of the John Jones relationship. Like, part of her is probably afraid to speak out against McGregor's cheating. Who knows? There could be some abuse going on behind closed doors. Conor could be threatening violence. I mean, Conor is a bit unhinged, especially ever since he started taking cocaine post leg break. He's not been the same person. And honestly, man, Conor's downfall, it's so sad. I miss the old Conor. I miss the way Conor used to be, before the leg break, before he went crazy. I miss when he was committed to the game, when he was married to the game. Now, ever since Floyd, he went inactive after UFC 205 rather than having a title run. And now, he loses to Floyd, then comes back, loses to Khabib, then goes inactive, and then fights Cerrone and Dustin. Dustin again, only beats Donald, which the win ages horribly. And then loses to Dustin twice, and he was never the same, not just physically, but mentally. The elephant in the room I want to address is how people love to say Jones ducked Tom, but we can say the same of Conor. For Conor, when he was undisputed champion, and Tony Ferguson was interim. Facts, bro. Facts. He ducked that fade hard. And I've been saying that, man, since 2017. I'm like, yo, he is ducking. He is ducking Tony Ferguson. I said Tony was a nightmare matchup for Conor McGregor. And that there was a reason why Conor's not taking that fight. Now, who knows? Maybe if Tony would have beat Khabib at UFC 209, if Khabib didn't pull out. I mean, Khabib was a fight Conor always was eyeing. So if he would have took the O from Khabib, it would have made Tony a bigger name. It might have given Conor more incentive to want to fight him, rather than him just winning the interim title off Kevin Lee. That probably took the appeal for Conor McGregor. Not justifying him ducking, I'm just saying that's probably why. He should have. It would have been a big fight, man. Imagine Conor comes back. He is the champion, the undisputed champion. Tony is the interim champion. And the fight would have went down too. Tony only tripped over the wire because Khabib versus Ferguson is just not meant to happen. It's cosmically, it's a cursed fight for whatever reason. I don't know why. Only God knows why that fight wasn't meant to happen. Well, I asked ChatGPT as well. I'm not going to read over the reasons. It's far back in the older threads, but yeah. But we could have been seeing Tony Conor in 2018. And who knows? Conor could have maybe defended his belt, could have made a legacy for himself, or maybe Tony could have been undisputed champion. Like, Tony got screwed badly, man. I feel bad for Tony. Yeah, because people are just biased, man. Conor McGregor gets a pass for so many things. So many things that other people wouldn't get a pass for. Like if Israel Adesanya flashed his dick to a rapper, a female rapper, and it got leaked and he threatened her, said, don't rat because all rats get caught. Dude, people would be on Israel Adesanya's ass. They wouldn't be like laughing or cheering him on. Same thing if John Jones did it. And I think you and I both know why. It's the color of both of their skin. Pretty obvious. It's a certain privilege that Conor has, Jones doesn't have, that Adesanya doesn't have, and it ain't Dana White privilege. But let them tell it, Conor would beat Gaethje and Ferguson easily. But if that's the case, why didn't he want the fight? He also ducked Justin Gaethje. Let's be real. He could have fought Gaethje instead of Donald Cerrone. He chose Donald over Justin Gaethje at UFC 246. I wonder why. I wonder why he didn't fight Justin Gaethje. Now, I don't know. Maybe Gaethje was young, in his prime, dangerous. And Conor's like, too risky. He's too tough. His leg kicks are too strong. He hits too hard. If he catches me on the chin, he can knock me the fuck out. Now, I don't know why he took Dustin, because Dustin was another dangerous guy in his prime. But you know what? Conor probably selected Poirier because he's like, oh, well, I beat Poirier already. So I could beat him again. He probably saw Dustin as like his little brother that he could just bully whenever he wanted. But he didn't realize, I mean, he knew Dustin improved, but he probably just didn't respect his improvements enough. Like, he probably just didn't realize, wait a minute, Dustin might be to the level where he can actually, like, not only compete with me, but beat me. And boy, I was like going crazy in my living room when Dustin Poirier knocked out Conor McGregor. Me and my mom were like both screaming. I was rooting for Dustin Poirier to win that fight. I didn't think he would win, and I actually picked Conor by second round TKO, but the opposite happened. But I was sure Conor was going to beat him again. But, you know, I'm glad that Dustin, I mean, I'm glad, but I feel a little conflicted because, you know, Conor losing, I don't know. If he would have won, could have made things more interesting. Conor could have fought for the title against Charles Oliveira, you know, or Michael Chandler. That could have happened as well. Seeing Conor as an active top contender chasing the belts again in 2021 would have been cool. And even for that trilogy with Poirier, he had that Brazilian mouthpiece and he was ready to call out Charles Oliveira. And I bet Charles was going to come in the octagon. They were going to do a face-off. Then they would have fought in December, but Conor would have got submitted and probably would have lost easier than Dustin did. Because at this point, Poirier is way better than Conor McGregor, far more evolved. Oliveira would have submitted Conor McGregor in like the second round, I think. Like, Conor would be dangerous on the feet, but the thing is, Conor showed in that trilogy against Poirier that his striking offense, his offense looked pretty good, but his defense looked bad under pressure. And Oliveira was a great pressure fighter, man. He would have walked McGregor down, got him in the clinch, landed knees, took some shots, but I think Conor's power kind of diminished over the years. Probably ain't knocking out Oliveira, and Oliveira would have a better chance implementing his grappling against Conor than he did to Poirier. He might even submit Conor in the first round. Like, if he gets Conor in that same position he got Ilya, first of all, he's taking down to Conor. And even if Conor ends up on top and Oliveira has to pull guard, Oliveira could have submitted him off his back. But honestly, I'm just going to say this. I think Ilya, who gets like a lot of McGregor comparisons, I think he's the upgrade from Conor McGregor, honestly. I mean, Conor will always be a bigger name, a bigger star. And Conor was Conor before anyone else tried to be Conor. So no one can be Conor better than Conor, personality-wise. But Topuria, not only is he dangerous on the feet, he's well-rounded. Conor McGregor always had a weakness on the ground, not Topuria. Conor always had a weakness in cardio. He's only been dangerous in the first round. Ilya's been dangerous every round. Better cardio, stylistically a better fighter than Conor, and doesn't cheat on his woman, at least for now, and he hasn't mentally spiraled. Okay, and even if he trash talks his opponents, he doesn't cross lines that McGregor did. Nor does he take lines like McGregor does. Yeah, nah. There's a reason why Conor didn't want to fight Gaethje. He's been ducking that fight since 2019. And that's the thing about Conor. It's weird how he wanted to fight Khabib so bad, even though that was the worst matchup for him, worse than a Tony or a Gaethje. But I guess he wanted that fight as badly as he did because he knew that would be a big fight. Undefeated, Russian, you know, maybe that would have drew like a big fan base war. I don't know. I don't know what he saw in that fight actually, but clearly he saw something that would have made it a big fight and a big fight worth taking. And maybe he thought, Tony's not going to draw enough revenue. Gaethje, not enough revenue and too much risk. And then he chose Cerrone because he's washed and they've had history with each other. They've been, shit talking each other since 2015. So I guess that was like the full circle moment that Conor McGregor wanted. All right, boys. My final take, I'll talk about Dustin Poirier before I bounce on his last fight. So this is it, man. His final ever fight. And it's against Holloway. Wow. I mean, Poirier's just had a great career. I mean, look at all the names this guy's beaten, or not even just beaten, but went in there with. He's fought the who's who since 2012. Max Holloway. I mean, he was supposed to fight Ricardo Lamas. I think Lamas would have beaten him, but Holloway, Jung, Swanson, Conor McGregor, Diego Ferreira, not really that great of a win. Who cares? Bobby Green, Michael Johnson, Jim Miller, Eddie Alvarez twice, Pettis, Gaethje, Max again, Dan, Connor, Oliveira, Chandler, and then Makhachev. And now Max Holloway will be his last UFC fight. I almost bit the inside of my lip. That's why, I almost kind of froze on my words there. But he was Max Holloway's first UFC fight. Holloway will be his last. This is such a tough fight for me, man, because I don't want to see either man lose. I wished it could have been another fight. I've been calling for the BMF fight with Oliveira and Holloway for this summer. The UFC didn't listen to me, but now Max is talking about fighting Oliveira after this fight, whether he wins or loses, which is stupid. If the UFC would have just listened to me, we would see Holloway versus Oliveira this weekend, and maybe as a co-main event, 5 rounds, you could do Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje on this card. Boom! Fans aren't complaining about this being a bad card. This card would be even bigger, right? Dustin gets the fight he wanted for his final fight against Justin the Highlight Gaethje. And then Oliveira doesn't get knocked out cold, doesn't get slimed out by Ilia Topuria. And then Ilia could just fight Arman Tsarukyan for the vacant belt. That's what the UFC should have freaking done. But instead, what do? They find a way to break us fans' hearts by throwing Oliveira into the fire against Ilia so he could die, and making us fans have to sit through a lose-lose between Holloway and Poirier. And it's funny, when these two last fought, I was like Team Holloway. I picked Holloway. I was biased for Holloway. I didn't have enough respect for Dustin at the time. I didn't think he was as good as he turned out to be. So I was confident. And then when Dustin ended up beating Holloway, I was pissed off. But I did grow to love Dustin Poirier over time. I did warm up to him. And then by the Conor McGregor fight, I became a huge fan. When he beat him, I'm like, all right, I'm on board with Poirier. And I had hoped that these two would never fight again. But here we are. And now, 6 years later, I was like 18 going on 19 then. Now I'm 24 going on 25 now. I'm more mature, and my heart has room for both guys. But either way, I have to suffer. I got to see Dustin lose his last fight ever, or I have to see Holloway go 0-3 to this guy. Neither sounds like a good option. But the best option Better than Dustin retiring as the BMF champ is Max avenging a loss to Poirier. Maybe being in the title picture or fighting Oliveira coming off a win, I guess, and sending Oliveira on a second straight loss, because I do think he beats Oliveira again. And I watched that first fight between Oliveira and Holloway. That was actually a good fight. And it's unfortunate that the fight ended the way it did. So they definitely got to run that back. But this trilogy definitely didn't need to happen. But it's so crazy how they'll have fought 3 times over 13 years and 3 different eras. You know, when fighters could wear their own shorts to then when they couldn't choose with Reebok, and now Venom, well, they can choose now because of custom gear. But still, 3 different eras of shorts, many different eras of this sport overall. And now this is their final dance. Crazy. And when they first fought, I didn't even know about it because back then I wasn't following the smaller weight classes unless it was like, I don't know, Frankie Edgar or Benson Henderson, you know, or Nate Diaz. But I wasn't like watching like the featherweight division or the bantamweight division at the time. I mean, I knew of Faber, Barao, and Cruz, but I only knew of them mainly from the UFC Undisputed 3 video game. And I'm surprised Holloway and Poirier were not included in the game. They should have been. But yeah, back when they fought, I didn't know about it. And then I found out about it like way after the fact that they already had their first fight in 2012 where Dustin smoked him in the first round, took him down, subbed him. And now when they fight the second time, I know about both, but I'm only a fan of one man, Holloway. Now their final fight, I know about both even more, but I'm a fan of both. But if Holloway wins, this will be the first time somebody actually defends their BMF title because this never happened before. No one has ever defended that damn belt ever. It would be a first. Okay, someone has either won the BMF belt, lost their next fight, or won the BMF belt and then lost the BMF belt. Okay, Masvidal didn't put his belt on the line, but he lost his next 2 fights to Usman. Then Gaethje lost his belt to Holloway. Holloway lost his next fight to Ilya and got KO'd. We'll see if he can break the BMF curse and at least defend the belt. All right, but I got to end this live now, but thank you all for tuning in. I'll go live again soon, and I'm looking forward to this weekend's card. Peace.